and many other exciting things this morning. So I just wanted to let you know that we are recording this meeting. If you, I forget what the exact Microsoft statement is, but if you're not okay with the recording, just let us know. But hopefully you will be. Robert, you okay with us recording?
Oh, I'm always recorded. I don't think I have a choice in the matter.
You always have a choice. Let me just start briefly by introducing myself. I'm Anne Marie Santamarina, and it is my pleasure to be here today with Robert Jaffe, who I'm guessing probably a couple or many of you might know, whether you're watching this on video or you're here with us live today. And our intention for this morning is to take you through a conversation, really. Like the word conversation is really intentional because that's what we want this to be. We want to invite interaction. If you have something you want to share, or if you hear something that you have a question about, or that you want to comment on, the chat is open and available, or please raise your hand and we'll kind of invite you to come off mute and share with us what's on your mind. So, with no further ado, let us get to our main speaker here, our only speaker, well, besides me. Robert, want to hand it over to you and let you go from here.
All right. Well, in case there's somebody out there that doesn't know me, I'm Robert Chiaffi, the CTO and co-founder here at Progressive Computing. I wear a number of different hats, as many people do in relatively smaller businesses. But two of the things that I focus on is strategic account management, as well as our cybersecurity. And sort of sandwiched in there too is about new technologies like Copilot, making sure that our customers, which we call partners, that our partners are well informed about what is available out there and to help guide them down this path of learning about what new technologies are out there and how can it potentially improve their business. And I'm going to unpack some of these concepts here within the presentation. Anne Marie is also going to be jumping in, right? So this is a little bit of a collaboration between the two of us. I'll be driving a lot of the content, but she's going to provide me some great air cover and jump in and fill things in as we go. So without further ado, um, I love starting out presentations with a question. And I think this is an important one, which is, what is your why for being here? You received an email from us, maybe because you like us or you think that we're kind of interesting, and maybe that's a why for you to be here. But I've got to imagine, with everyone's busy and hectic schedules, that something piqued your interest about AI, not just another opportunity to listen to one of us here talk about technology. So I want you to think for a moment. You can scratch it down on a piece of paper or type it in a note taker, or just even think about it. Like, what was the main reason, what drove you here today? And there's a reason we're asking this question, is because we're going to reflect later at the end on what your answer is. And you'll do that privately, of course. And certainly we can talk about it after if you want. But what I want to make sure is that we're checking against not only to reflect, not only to confirm the reasons why you came here, but then also to consider how maybe your perception of Copilot or AI in general might have changed based on this new any new information that you might see here. So I think that's important, and something that, even as the facilitator in me, would always tell anybody in my peer groups is to reflect afterwards. Did you get the value out of this that you wanted?
Robert, I also
Yeah,
invited a little engagement in the chat.
sure.
If anybody wanted to share, and a couple of people have shared, I won't read those out loud now. We will come back to them
Okay,
later.
yeah, we
But I
certainly can
love
do
that
that.
you reiterated, it's a personal reflection, so there's no requirement to share it in the chat, but I just wanted
Yeah.
to invite that engagement.
Sure. And again, and in case we don't have time today to unpack any of those whys, and you'll see the call to action at the very end, everyone, about how we can dive deeper into this. But before starting on any kind of AI journey, especially now with some new technology like AI. Listen, there's a lot of hype out there about that, right? About AI, what it's possible, like even some scary things about, it's going to take over the world. Let's just start simply with a self-awareness. And I had a conversation with an account some months ago where the owner was very concerned about their non-use of AI within their business. And throughout that conversation with him, what we really discovered was that AI, even though this is what he's hearing, right, by watching the news or at conferences and listening to other IT professionals or other business people saying, you got to use AI, you got to use AI. If you're not using AI, you're behind the curve. And while there's some truth in that, it creates a lot of confusion. So let's start first with your own self-awareness about what your business goals are, what your pain points are, and what are your current. Well, actually, let me just stop there for a minute. Like, what are your goals and what are your pains within your business? Because we shouldn't undertake any new technology, AI or anything for that matter, unless there's some at least perceived value, right? I was going to say tangible or concrete, but at least that there's some perceived value. And I think that's where everybody is on this AI journey right now, is that we're perceiving that there's value there. But I want you to start before you get to answering that question by thinking about your own business. What are your goals and what are your pain points? And then what's also good is to take stock of where you are currently. Do you have understanding, at least at a fundamental level, about what AI is and what it is not? And do you have anybody on your team that has either those skills or even a good propensity to learn those things, right? Because if you don't have the staff for it, let's say right now, or nobody on your team knows anything about that, right? Obviously, you can come to Progressive Computing and your partnership there for direction, but it's always going to need somebody on the inside to be an operator or user of that technology. So we've got to upskill those people as well. And then another consideration is thinking about where data is stored. And why is that important? It's important because AI is really great at leveraging massive amounts of data. And your data, whether it's stuck in a database, stuck's not the right word, whether it's in a database or it's in files or it's in emails, right? We've got data in a lot of different places. We have to understand where our data is in order to understand whether AI can leverage it or not, right? We're going to focus on Copilot today as the great example. But if Copilot does not have direct access to a data set because it's in some cloud, behind some sort of cloud application, then it gets a little bit more challenging and difficult to integrate those two. But if you're asking Copilot, as an example, to review all of your emails and files for something, then obviously it's going to have a lot more direct access. So that's an important consideration here. And then ultimately, does your company have the correct necessary infrastructure and resources to support AI
Right?
initiatives? And I kind of glossed over a lot of that
I
already.
don't know. Where is it?
I'm not sure if there was a question
I
there
need to
or
bring
if
that
somebody's
down.
just not on mute. Um, didn't sound like there was a question, so I'm going to keep moving. So what's really important in this conversation, much like many people have heard me probably say, if I can draw an analogy to cybersecurity, that cybersecurity is a journey and that it is not a destination, right? AI is also a journey, especially because the technology is still developing, and we need to use our business minds, right, to determine if there is a fit for AI today to meet those goals and challenges. And so the way I like to unpack this and go a little further, or to provide a framework for thinking, is to not just blanket say, hey, tell me what your business goals are, but to maybe even incite a little bit of critical thinking using some tools to determine what those business goals are. Listen, even here with, and Ugo's listening in, he and I have been business partners for 32 years. It's tough sometimes when you get in a room, especially towards the end of the year, and thinking about what our goals should be for the upcoming year, right? And it takes some time to discern. Some things are immediate and obvious, right? And some things aren't so obvious, or sometimes there's a lot of competing things on the table. So prioritizing goals is a very important thing. But once you've identified a goal, we here use that SMART principle to define that goal much better, right? To be very specific about that goal, to understand how we're going to measure the progress or success of that goal, to determine how achievable this goal is, right? To ensure that it is relevant, and to ensure that it is timely. So using the SMART principle to define your goals is a critical part of this process. And if you do know me and we have spoken, and I know that many of you on this call have heard me say this before, is that technology, in my mind, has to address one of four things in your business. And some of them are a little easier depending upon your business, what industry you're in, to achieve than others. The very first thing that technology can do for you is to help you increase revenue in some ways. Now, that might be a piece of software that that you've got in your business that helps you become a lot more efficient, or enables teams of people, like especially salespeople, to do their jobs, right? The second one is, how does technology impact your bottom line, right? And that might be because you can consolidate some costs, whether that's labor or materials, or improve a process, right? Or it's got to be able to increase your productivity. The people that you have today on your payroll, right? How do I make them more productive? How do I get them to focus on the right things and do their jobs efficiently, so that they're not wasting time on tasks and labor that is of low value? And then the fourth and final thing is, technology has to or can reduce your risk in some sort of way. So technology solutions have to fall into one of those four buckets. Now, you can argue some nuance in there, but generally speaking, you're going to hit one of those four bullets in any technological solution. And Copilot is no different here, right? Copilot, clearly, in my mind, and you might be able to come up with examples after today of how it will affect your business in one of the other three bullets, but increasing productivity is the low-hanging fruit there, is to be able to do more things with the current people that you have, and in a way that makes them feel better about their jobs, and that they're getting greater output out, right? Because that's ultimately what we want as employers as well. I want my people to feel good about the work that they're doing and not do tedious, labor-intensive type tasks. And if any technological solution, whether it's Copilot or something else, can help that, then I'm highly interested in that.
Hey, Robert, I
Yeah,
just want to
yeah,
interject here for a
sure.
quick moment. So, a couple of things to note, for our audience. So, I took those points that you had on the slide with the graphics, just dropped them
Yes,
in the chat, just so that people could refer back to them as you're
sure.
talking through. And then I was just curious, just by a show of electronic hands, or if anybody wants to come off camera and wave at us, how many of you are setting those goals at the beginning of the year? Like, is that a process that you've got engaged in your business, or if anybody's has a methodology that's not SMART goals, right? Maybe a different methodology. If you want to throw that in the chat, I just want to continue to encourage that interaction and hear a little bit from you to make sure that what we're sharing is resonating and it's on theme with what your expectations are for this morning. So Pat's does some planning and some goals.
Carol, yep.
Good. I see hands
Elena,
going
yep.
up. Great.
Wonderful.
So this, because I think, if you're like, well, I'm not really at that in my operational maturity level, or this process looks a little bit different than what I'm doing today, right? Not everybody's on a fiscal year, right? So maybe if you're on a, I mean, not everybody's on a calendar
Calendar
year.
year.
So if you're on a fiscal year, maybe your timing hasn't happened for that. But I think this methodology, when Robert and I were talking about, what we wanted to provide here today, I really liked, this approach that Progressive takes. I think that it's really sets, you in a leadership role and then your team, it kind of sets everybody in the same direction, right? So I just wanted to, ask about that. So thank you for those who are engaging. Robert, back to you.
And incidentally, total sidebar, we use something called EOS here, Entrepreneurial Operating System. Not that that's the be all end all perfect system, but it's gained a lot of popularity, especially among small businesses. And if anybody ever wants to have a conversation about that, Ugo and I are both, I'll say, pretty experienced with it now. So feel free to reach out to any one of us on that. But I'll keep moving along because
That's a great framework, though.
we
Thanks for
we
bringing
we
that
want to
up.
talk about Copilot, right?
Yes, we do.
But all of this is really important, right? I really feel that that sets the stage, sort of as Anne Marie was talking there, really sets the stage for the technological piece of this. So let's see if we can get a little deeper in there. So next up, we're going to assess your AI readiness and even your commitment level to taking on a project, right? It's always, and I talked about this earlier, about it's always really important to understand where you are today, both from a capability perspective and what your resources are. So, I want you to be thinking about when we're taking on any project with AI is where is that most practical place to start? And I have some examples later, by the way, in case you're like, I don't even know where to start. And that's fine. And I love that. I love that statement. Like, I have no idea where to start. I feel like I need to do this. We're going to be talking a little bit about the emotional side of this in a bit too. And that's totally cool. Like, look yourself in the mirror, look me in the face, and just I'm clueless. I don't know where to start, but it feels like I need to do something here. That's a real thing. Okay. And is my staff ready, right? Maybe I'm ready, but maybe my team isn't ready. And how do we overcome those challenges? And then, like anything else, while there's a lot of free stuff out there, there's a lot of danger with free, especially when it comes to AI in terms of privacy and security and confidentiality. We'll talk about that at the very, very end of the presentation. So you've got to put some budget into this. And now what I mean by budget is, okay, here comes the sales pitch from Progressive Computing. We got to buy some licensing. Yes, you do. But I would argue that the license costs are, which are nominal anyway, are not really the true cost to your business. It's the time, right? It's the investment of time, though, right? With an expected ROI back that if I put some time and energy into a Copilot project to determine where I can gain some productivity and efficiencies, which ultimately lead to probably my bottom line, what's my expected ROI on that? And so these are some of the thoughts and considerations that I think you need to make sure that you're reviewing.
Well, and Robert, while you're going to the next slide, I want to just add, the other kind of human component is the employee reluctance, right? Oh, is AI going to take my job? Is this going to replace me? And so there's that kind of fear that can come up. I know we're going to talk about that a little bit more later as well,
Yep.
but I just thought here, when we think about budgeting, it also is kind of impact to the internal culture, right? And just having a messaging that helps reiterate the fact that these are tools, right, that are going to help enhance everyone's experience, whether that's external on the customer side, internal on the employee side. And again, we're at Progressive, we're here to support that messaging within your organization and help you present it in a way that your staff doesn't, their reluctance becomes an impeding factor because they're nervous it's going to replace their job.
Which it won't.
Correct.
I kind of hinted at this a little bit, and I'm not going to read through the slide, but here's the why. Like what's motivating you? Like what motivated you to be here today? Gets back to that early, like why are you here? Like what are the motivators? And these are some of the things that we're hearing, right? As I'm in the industry talking to peers, as I speak to our partners customers, clients, whatever, as I talk to other professionals, this is what I'm hearing and even reading in my research, right? The first thing is just this fear of missing out, right? Like this anxiety around like it's all over the news, it's in my inbox, it's on every social media page that I'm reading, it's like everywhere. Like and I hear about other people doing it and I'm not, right? So maybe I'm behind, right? Maybe I'm becoming a dinosaur. And it certainly should be a motivator to spark your curiosity, but I want you to remove the negative emotion from that, right? You're not late to the game. You're not missing out. Your competitor is not going to beat you to senseless because they've somehow implemented AI. The fact that you're on this call and leaning into your curiosity to me already means that you're already ahead of the average, right? And you're in that, maybe not that upper quartile, but you're in that second quartile of people who are like, all right, I'm ready to start talking about this a little bit more seriously. There might be some competitive ness or peer pressure, right? We see this in our industry when we talk to fellow MSPs who are talking about using AI technology in their businesses. And we've taken a pretty cautious approach here. I'm going to just, put that on the table. I think there's some really cool things that we're starting to do, but other things that we're just making sure that we're doing things the right way and in a secure way. But there's that pressure, right? You feel like, oh, my competitor is going to come into one of my customers and talk about how they've got all this AI tech in their business and somehow steal my customer away. Yeah, I guess that's maybe a fear, but not necessarily reflective of reality. And then, there's that strategic fit or importance. Now we're getting to the more rational way of thinking about motivation, right? That I actually do my research. I do reading. I do cut through the noise and the BS and the hype, and I'm able to discern and distill that there are some practical use cases for AI in my business. And I've seen it at trade shows or industry events, and I'm ready. Like, I want to start taking that step, right? Whether that's specifically embedded within software that you use for your industry or the general purpose tools like a Copilot. And these are all important things to be thinking about and recognizing that there's a lot of different motivations out there, and even the ones that have a little bit of negativity associated with them, we can flip that to a positive just by changing your mindset a little bit. Um, And so, one of the big ones is keeping up with customer expectations, right? All your customers, I mean, hey, our customers are getting more and more tech savvy every day, right? And so they're driving us as an example to be more cutting edge, right? They have higher expectations out of us for service, either personalization or efficiency, right? And there's just rising expectations in general that we're all, every single business leader that I speak to, whether it's in my industry or outside of our industry, feels this, I'll say, pressure to continue to delivering greater services and be better for their customers, right? To meet their demands wherever they are. And to meet these demands, people feel pressured to adopt AI for customer service type of engagements or other things as well. And this is why we decided to focus also on Copilot today, because it's probably one of the easier things that you can embark upon with your first steps or even your second and third steps with AI productivity to help meet some of these things. So there's a lot of different drivers, and maybe I've not touched on something that you're seeing, and that's okay. But just recognize what those drivers and motivators are. Why are you doing this, right? Um, and just, a little bit of statistics. I'm a data guy, numbers guy. So when I saw this data, it moved me, and I hope it at least provides some good value to you. There's something called digital debt. It's the use of digital technology. Technology, of course, we're at the forefront and center of it. And we love technology and we think there's so many great benefits of technology. But at the same time, we recognize that uncontrolled or unplanned or not strategically managed, it can overwhelm you, right? And it's costing us in terms of innovation, productivity, and I'll even touch upon the sensitive subject of mental health, right? 64% of employees, this came from something called the Work Trend Index. 64% of employees don't have enough time or energy to do their job. And I know there's a lot of business owners and leaders on this listening to this, as well as employees of organizations. And I know everybody is feeling this because just about everybody I talk to does not say, "Oh yeah, I woke up this morning at 9 and had breakfast. I got to the office at 11:30, and by 3:30 I'm on the golf course or out shopping." Like that's said nobody ever anymore, right? Unless you're just crazily independently wealthy, nobody has that life. We're all working super hard. 57% of employees' time is spent just in communicating, right? And so here we are at Progressive Computing, trying to get better and greater utilization out of our team. And if close to, you know, over half, maybe encroaching 2/3 of their time is just communication, seems like there's some efficiency to be gained there, right? And only 43% of employees' time, and this is of course general statistics, are actually spent creating, right? Developing, doing, right? Executing, because most of their time is caught up in this digital tidal wave of information. And I think Copilot can help reduce those pressures and stresses.
Oh, and Robert, I'll just build
Yeah.
on that for a minute. So, that communicating bucket, right? Messages, meetings, right? Like just the level of interaction, right? And sometimes repetitive interaction. So I'm really excited for some of the examples we're going to share a little bit later that will kind of speak directly to these statistics and
Thank
how
you
we
for that.
can, we can maybe shift them a little bit, right?
Yep, yep. I think the next, I've got a little quick video. I promise it wasn't me who created it for those that have seen my videos before. It's short and sweet and right to the point. I thought close to brilliant as possible. Let me jump there. I'm pretty sure that I've got my sound enabled for you. Anne Marie, if you could give me a thumbs up after I hit play.
Yeah.
This is we lifted this right from Microsoft. They provided it to us. And I think it shows exactly what I've been talking about, how Copilot being used in some minor ways can start giving you back minutes, right? And you know what happens when you start taking back minutes. If you accumulate them well enough, right? Those things can start to potentially turn into hours, maybe across a week or a month, but it becomes real savings. So let me just play this for you.
And it's going to take about 3 seconds till we actually hear it. So,
Imagine you have an appointment that conflicts with your weekly business review. What if you could do both? With Copilot, you can opt to follow a meeting. After the meeting ends, Copilot will summarize what you missed. You'll get a notification in Teams when the recap is ready. This recap will highlight content that was shared, summarize notes, and any action items for you or others whose names were mentioned. You see that one of your customers was discussed, and you want to learn more. You can ask Copilot clarifying questions, and it provides a detailed response. It can tell you why a certain decision was made, and gives you helpful context. You can even ask Copilot what other solutions were considered, and it provides citations from the transcript so you can see where Copilot drew these conclusions. It's a huge time saver. So that was pretty cool. But the real magic of Copilot happens during a live meeting. Let's say you're in a meeting with your team. You can ask Copilot to summarize the meeting so far. You can see how it summarizes who said what points were made, and it's really capturing the spirit of the discussion. And as the meeting progresses, you can check in on where people stand. You can even ask Copilot what questions are unresolved. It's just amazing to see this happen in real time during a meeting.
Well, that was the video. I don't know about you, but I really thought that was cool. The fact that I could get the summarization and the notes from a meeting that I was supposed to attend happens to me more often than not, simply because I've got to make, some difficult choices about what I'm attending and what I'm not. But then to also go, because and I almost wish some of my team members that work, directly for me were on this call, because they'll tell you, like, after a call, I'm like, okay, so what happened? Tell me, right? And I'm interrupting them, right? And I'm taking up more time from them. But if instead I can just ask Copilot a couple of quick questions, I might be able to get all the answers I need. Now, will it replace that discussion I need to have? Absolutely not. But it might take a 20-minute conversation down to 3 or 5. And it might, instead of me asking 20 questions, get it down to 1 or 2 very succinct ones.
Well, and
I
there's that
absolutely,
57%, right, Robert?
yeah.
That's that communicating, right? That's a really great illustration of you can now get the key points and now you know what questions, because you might even have that conversation with them, then go back, reflect on it in your office, and then come back with some more questions. And now we've just reduced that, and maybe we're minimizing it a little bit, but I think that, and I don't know about everybody else, but I'm a visual processor. So when I can read the notes on something, but none of us really like to summarize the notes, right? Because that who has time for that, right? You jump from meeting to meeting. So to be able to have them summarize like that and then be able to look through them and but give questions back to the team or whatever, this is to me an incredibly valuable component from Copilot.
Yep. And it is a, great case for using the integration of of all the Microsoft technologies, right? Because as we'll probably see in some other examples coming up, between email and Office Suite and Teams and Copilot, and how all of these things sort of come together is massively important in terms of productivity. So let me just keep moving, because I want to be respectful of time and show the next one.
Imagine you have an appointment that conflicts with your
Oh,
weekly business
I'm
review.
sorry. I think this might be the
What if
same
you could
one.
do
That's the
both?
same one. Yeah.
With
Next
Copilot,
slide,
Yep.
I think.
Sorry. Yep. Next one. Hold on. Let me get this one going. Sorry about that. This is about how Copilot can interact with Word. And I thought this was also very good for those that just don't want to spend a lot of time rewriting and writing things. So check this one out.
when you've written a paragraph in shorthand, you can highlight it and click Rewrite. Copilot then offers several alternate options to choose from that are all written professionally. And it can translate wordy or complex paragraphs into digestible visualized tables. You can even use Copilot to add a column with extra data, which it can complete automatically. Copilot also makes you the expert on any document. Simply ask a question about the content, and Copilot will provide a concise response.
So it's another example of where someone might have prepared a document for me, and I might, have to edit it, or, do some revisions. But here's the other great thing is, now I can start asking questions about, and that was one example about, well, who's the target audience for this, right? It's a way for me to make sure that now when I interrupt somebody else's day or ask them to give me some time so we can talk about this, my questions are way, 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 way more pointed, because I've had Copilot to help me prepare for that. Um, and let me just get to the next one. This is about how it works with Excel.
Copilot puts all the rich capabilities of Excel at your fingertips. Say you need to analyze this quarter's sales results for the monthly business review. You start by asking Copilot to analyze the data and give you 3 key trends. Within seconds, you've got what you need, but you want to drill in. You ask Copilot a follow-up question about one of the trends. Copilot creates a new sheet, giving you a sandbox to play in, and helping you get a better understanding of what's happening without modifying the data in the original sheet. You ask Copilot to visualize what contributed to the decline in sales growth this period. Copilot adds a little color to make the problem jump off the page. Now you want to dig a little deeper and ask a follow-up question with a what-if scenario. Copilot not only answers your question, it creates a simple model of the scenario. and even asks you if you want to learn more about what it did with a step-by-step breakdown. Finally, you can ask it to create a graph of your projected model. Copilot has turned a sea of data into clear insights and actions.
So what was really cool about that too is that it's suggesting things and then it's like creating a table or a graph and then you can decide whether, I mean, he kept clicking keep it, but you could decide, well, maybe that's not exactly what I wanted and, let me go back and rewrite that question. Because your first, couple of times through it, you may not get it exactly where you need it. But in this example, for those that are probably more on the financial side of the business, whether you're doing accounting work or financial services or just doing any kind of data crunching, even engineers, there's a lot of different applications here. And if you feel like you've got, heavy Excel sheets, this can be a really good tool to use inside those sheets. So they're just, some examples to get some gears turning in your head, right? My goal is not to get you your PhD in Copilot today, but at least just get you through some of the initial stages here. And then the last thing I have for you in terms of demoing is to demo a couple of everyday use cases. And I want to touch on really two things is there's two items that I want to make sure that I'm accomplishing by showing you these three things. The first thing is giving another little power demonstration, right? What's the capability of Copilot? What are some of the things that it can do? The other thing is to illustrate the importance of prompting. Now, we're not going to go super deep into this whole discussion on prompting, but prompting is a skill that AI users, especially when we're using generative AI tools like Copilot, prompting is a skill that you need to get comfortable with. And here's a great analogy without making you kind of say, oh my goodness, like forget it. I don't want to learn a new thing. I'm sure the first time that you opened up a browser and you typed in something in that search bar, you got it wrong or it gave you bad results. Like over time, we've all gotten pretty good at making sure that we're like tossing in the right words and things to get the search results that we're looking for. Well, Copilot is really no different. How you ask it a question is really important. And I'm going to show you a couple of quick examples. So you just got to give me a second here. I got to stop sharing and then get
While you cue that up, I have
Yeah,
something
please
I
go
can
ahead.
add
Yep.
to that.
Yep.
So, again, kind of coming back to that, I'm really stuck on that 57% of time is spent communicating. But
Yeah.
in correlation to the journal prompts, I think another key part to note is even like our interactions with each other, right? Like sometimes, I don't know about you guys, but like I'll ask my husband for something or and he'll be like, no, you didn't ask me that. I'm like, no, no, I think that's exactly what I asked you, right? So sometimes we even have to kind of change our communication interactive with humans, right? And so that's just a way to think about the prompting in Copilot as well, right? Is am I being specific enough that it's really going to give me back what I'm asking for?
Okay, so I've got Copilot up here on my screen, and I'm going to ask Copilot in that first example to rewrite an email for you. So I'm only going to read you the prompt because it's going to not necessarily be the easiest thing to see on the screen. But here's my prompt. I'm just going to read it to you. Joe is writing an email to his boss, John, about a very small raise he got. Joe is upset and wants to soften the tone of his email to be much more professional and convincing. But Joe also wants to be firm. Can you rewrite this email? And then, of course, it says, Dear John. It's a Dear John email. Dear John, right? And he's like, complaining. It sounds very complaining, right? And whining, right? That's the way I wrote the email. So let's see what it does. I'm going to paste it right here in a Copilot. And say, please attack that problem. Right. So instead of it saying, Dear John, I've been working here for 15 long years, and just yesterday I got my paycheck with a lousy 0.1% raise. That really irks me. I'm highly trusted, blah, blah, blah. Right. Now the email says, "Dear John, I hope you find this message finds you well. I want to discuss the recent raise I received, which was a 0.1% increase after 15 years of dedicated service to the company. I was hoping for a more substantial recognition of my contributions," right? So I won't read through the whole example, but you can already tell that the tone of this second one has been written in a way that achieves the prompt, right? Like I'm upset, I'm emotional, I know that. I want to send this message, but I need some help rewriting it. And let's face it, a lot of people out there, maybe not you, but probably a lot of people under your wing in your employment probably aren't the best writers. And who are they communicating with? They're communicating with customers. And sometimes you might say, huh, I probably would have said that a little different, right? So why not give them the ability to say, hey, here's what I want to say. I just want to say it better, right? And Copilot's a really good tool to do that. Now, my second example was writing a social media post, and I'm going to read this to you before I paste it in. I'm going to prompt it, write me a LinkedIn post using 100 words or less that tells my customer about the importance of keeping private or sensitive information out of email and text messages. Specifically cite at least one FBI or CISA article. And if you noticed, everything that I just wrote there is pretty specific, right? What I'm asking for. I'm not saying that I have the best prompting skills, but I think I have pretty decent prompting skills. And it's thinking, and it says, in today's digital age, safeguarding private and sensitive information is crucial. The FBI warns that text messages aren't secure and recommends using encrypted messaging apps to protect your data. Similarly, I can never say that word right. CISA advises placing sensitive information in encrypted file attachments when sending emails. Let's prioritize security and ensure our communications are protected with a few relevant hashtags. And if you know anything about social media posting, hashtags and the right ones are important. But here's something else that you may not have noticed, and that is the citations, right? What Copilot did here is it grabbed an article and cited its reference from something called thehill.com. And the other one was from CISA.gov, right directly from the government's website. And so in developing that social media post, you might want to cite your references or provide the links for further information. So that's really cool. And then hopefully this will work well. Is, of course, if you know anything about social media, you can't just put text up there. I need a picture, but I'm not an artist and I don't have anybody on my team to do that. So I'm asking Copilot, can you design me a picture of someone sending an encrypted email? Now, this will take a moment or two to do its job, but let me get you there. So you see some kind of like moving particles on the screen. It's actually generating some images, and it's going to give me 4 that meet the criteria that I gave it. And of course, I can spend a lot of time going back and forth, asking it, okay, I like the bottom left one, but can you use a purple color scheme, to really refine the image? And I'm not going to do that here, obviously, because I think I made my point. And then the last one was about creating some documentation. And I don't know about all of you, but we've got a lot of policies in different Word documents and lots of different folders, and some of them are even stuck in emails. And so what I'm asking Copilot to do is, using our emails and files in Teams to find sources of information, please create a master policy document that contains every current IT security and HR policy, and please include an index. So I'm going to paste that text here. And by the way, I can also, I don't know if you're noticing, but I can hit the plus sign and give it a document, and say, analyze this document for best practices or whatever. But I'm just going to hit send here and
And
see what
Robert,
it,
while it's out there
yep.
looking, this is a great example of why we had that earlier note about understanding where your data is stored, right? And
Yes.
those sources, right? This is where this really comes in handy.
And so here we have an index of both IT and HR policies, right? And there are cited indexes, right? Like there's an email, there's another email that it found, there's another group chat it found, right? And so on and so forth, right? Now, is this perfect? Maybe not. Was any of the output so far perfect? Maybe not. Was it 85, 90% of the way there and saved me a lot of time? I think so. And I hope you do too. So let's get right back to the demonstration.
And when you're going
Uh,
back to your slides,
yep,
I want to just, when we were back on that email example, I wanted to share that I was speaking to a group of MSPs and we were looking for use case scenarios within the group. And someone shared that they use that rewrite feature for when, they've got to resolve a conflict. So maybe it's not even an email, right? But it's a conversation that needs to be had, maybe with an
that's a great
employee or a
example.
customer,
Yep.
right? And then it's like, okay, this is what I want to say. This is what I'm dealing with. Help me architect it. So it can diffuse a little bit of that emotion. It's a great sidekick to have.
That's an awesome example. Thank you, Anne
You're
Marie,
welcome.
for reminding me of that. Probably something I should do a little bit more often as well. Probably a lot
That
of us
wasn't
should.
my intention.
No, I'm only kidding. Anyway, last thing I want to talk about, and we want to make sure that we're getting to the very end of this and be respectful of time, stay within the time, and even open it up for some questions, is really to understand why Copilot makes a lot of sense versus some of the other tools that are out there, like a Chat GPT, like an OpenAI. And you already heard me talk about one of them, and then that is the very, very tight integration within the Microsoft 365, what's called your tenant, right? Like progressivecomputing.com is a Microsoft 365 subscriber, and that is our tenant. So in there lives our email, lives Teams, lives our OneDrives, lives now Copilot, right? And all of this data and intelligence that we have. And so it's that tight integration of all these tools that make a tremendous amount of sense. We know where the data is. We can control it. We can secure it better, right? And the second bullet here, and I don't know if you can see necessarily my cursor. I think you can probably see my mouse pointer there, is that your data is not used to train the OpenAI foundation models, at least not without your permission. And we can turn that stuff off by default. In fact, I believe it is already turned off by default. What we mean here is that uh, the danger sometimes with some AI tools, the open ones, especially the ones that are free, is you're agreeing to some terms and conditions when you click the agree, right? And I know that you didn't read that long legal document, and even a lot of attorneys admit to me they don't. They just scroll down to agree and click yes or accept. And that is when you're using those free ones, your data is actually being used to train the AI to become better. And so that data becomes part of their intelligence. And should somebody else ask a question that might produce your data as a result, suddenly now someone else is looking at your data, which is totally not cool, right? So that privacy and security. And there's a lot of just accountability and transparency as well when we've got all of these tools tightly integrated. Now, some of you or a lot of you know me very well. This is one of my hot topic buttons. I'm going to get on the pulpit and slam my fist and talk about security no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to resist the temptation to beat that dead horse. But certainly it is a critical part of the conversation. And I want to make sure that you understand that we are looking out first and foremost from a security perspective. Not only does this need to add value to the business, but it needs to do it in a safe and secure way. And
Hey,
that's
Robert.
why. Yep, please.
Eric's put some things in the chat, I think,
Okay.
related to this topic. So I'm going to read it, and then we may just ask him to come off mute if it makes more sense. Asked
Yeah.
and answered by the AI principal slide. Is the data we upload to be analyzed secure? what if I uploaded business financial information and asked for selected analysis?
Yeah, so if you're doing that with, let's say, OpenAI or a chat GPT, there's a risk that that data gets leaked out to the public, because it becomes part of the public domain. But when you're using a closed system like Copilot, it stays within your tenancy. And I'm actually going to answer a question that you didn't ask, but you may be thinking. So if I'm an employee and I say, can you tell me what Robert and Ugo make every year? Right? Because that data is in our tenancy someplace, right? I want to know how they're compensated. If you don't have permissions as the user asking the question to the resources where that data is, Copilot will not offer that information, right? So whoever's in charge of my payroll here might have a spreadsheet with that information in it. Let's just pretend that that exists, right? And one of my technicians wants to know that the answer to that question. They won't be able to get that data. And the reason I brought this up is because I just want to highlight that by design, it is already thinking about security in that way. I hope that
So,
answered your
Robert,
question, Eric.
on the converse of that,
Yep.
if someone on your financial team used an open AI source to manipulate that spreadsheet in some way, right?
Yeah.
Thinking it was, would that put that data out on the
Sure. So
public?
let's say who's ever in charge of my payroll takes a spreadsheet with a lot of very sensitive information in it. And let's just even say it's got social security numbers in it, right? Because I don't know how much damage somebody can do to me if they know what my salary is. But my name and my social, I'm really concerned about that. And let's say somebody used OpenAI to ask questions about that spreadsheet. Well, that spreadsheet is now part of its public database of information. There's actually a Samsung was dinged not once, twice, but three times in engineers using OpenAI years ago to do things like, hey, here's some proprietary source code that we have. Can you optimize it so it runs better? And now that source code is now part of the public domain. And you can't get that stuff back because once it's out there, it's out there.
That's a deep topic. Yeah, and
It
I
is a
think
deep topic. Yeah.
Carol put for her why that they are using Copilot, but she wants to make sure from a compliance standpoint that they're adhering,
Yep.
to the right. So I think probably that part about permissions, I hope that was a little reassuring,
Well,
Carol, from your
for
perspective.
for sure, I know Carol's business. I know who Carol is, and
I
I
know you do.
understand clearly what their compliance requirements are. And yes, if you are in any business where you may be governed by some sort of either a governing body or compliance or law, and then I'll go one step further to say if you are highly concerned about customer confidentiality and privacy because of your reputation should that data leak. Maybe the government's not coming to slap you on the wrist and stick you with a fine, but your customers certainly will hurt you worse should your data, should their data get leaked through you. That's why using a system like Copilot becomes immensely important so that we're making sure that we're protecting that data and that it's not leaking, right? There's a term in our business called data leakage, right? We want to make sure that that data does not leak outside of your systems.
So, Robert, before we wrap up, and kind of close it out, and even before we ask, if anybody's got any additional questions, I think it's time to come back to reflecting back on the why that
Yes.
that everyone claimed for themselves at the beginning of the presentation, and just kind of open it up if there we saw some of the whys. Thank you to those who shared, and
Yes.
for
Thank you.
those of you that didn't, how's the alignment, right? Robert, do you want to talk a little bit more about this from a just kind of what our objective was?
Yeah, I mean, my objective was just to get people to be thinking a little bit more clearly about it. Like, the one thing that I despise, and if I could do this full time, I just enjoy demystifying things so much. If I could somehow turn that into $1 million a year job, that's probably what I would want to do. But it's important for us to make sure that everybody is comfortable with the technology that they have and they're not succumbing to the hype or fears, right? And that they we want people to be excited about something, but we want them to also not just say, okay, yeah, I trust you, here's some money, like go make it happen. But we want people to feel very comfortable that they understand what the technology is, at least from that high level business perspective, right? So that was one thing I wanted to impart on everybody is, I know the news, if it bleeds, it leads, right? And so media loves to sensationalize things. And that's probably where most of our information is coming from on any topic. And this one is no different. AI has, there's a lot of mystique and mystery around it. And I'm hoping that that helped demystify it. But I hoped also by showing you from some simple examples to help inspire you to think about specific things that you could be doing in your business, right? Because nobody knows your workflows, your processes, your business, and your people better than you do, right? I don't know necessarily what their skill levels are, and would a co-pilot help them, no matter where their level of skill is, either get more productive or upskill themselves by using tools like this.
That's a really great point. And I think all the examples you gave, even for me, I always learn something when I get an opportunity to work with you. So I really appreciate that. Before I kind of just go to the next steps, were there any other questions that didn't get answered? We've got about 3 minutes left. While you're mulling on that, we do have a couple of asks from the progressive side. So if you're not already following us on LinkedIn, this is just the marketer in me, so please indulge. I did want to put a QR code up there because that's what we do today. But obviously, I work for Mr. Robert Chaffee, so that's a big no-no, right? And from a security standpoint. So I'm going to ask you to go the old-fashioned way and log into LinkedIn and look for Progressive
Oh,
Computing
that's not
and
right.
just follow us on LinkedIn. I'd really appreciate that. I didn't mean it as a dig, Robert.
No, no,
And
no, and
then
it's not. And in fact, really, I typed the wrong link there, so don't click on that. I forgot the link. I wish I could spell. Maybe I should have Copilot do this for me. Hey, Copilot, can you drop in my LinkedIn? That's my LinkedIn, in case we are not already connected.
yeah, and
Um,
I'll also put progressives in there because we love that you follow Mr. Chaffee and you absolutely do that. And then there's also some other content on the Progressive Computing
there we
page.
go.
So
That's the right one.
we want to make sure that we get you, we have you following us and engaging with us there. It means a
Yeah.
lot to us. And then if you have anything specific, you want to dive into any of this deeper, Robert has made his calendar available for you here if you don't already have this link. We invite you to schedule some time with him and talk about this, how it's going to really roll into your plans, those goals that you may have set at the beginning of the year, or the goals that you're going to be setting if your, calendar and fiscal year are not the same time period. We're here to help. Basically the overarching message is we're here to help. We want to create an opportunity for you to, be engaged with us and for us to support you in any capacity that we can. So on behalf of Progressive Computing, Robert, thank you. It's, always a pleasure to be able to share these spaces with
Yeah.
you. And to everybody that took time out of their day today, thank you. We'd love to hear from you about your why and if it lived up to its expectations in terms of why you showed up, or maybe it exceeded it. That would be amazing. So thank you again. This is recorded. If you wanted to go back and watch any piece of it, we'll send a follow-up with a link to our YouTube. And we'll be in touch. The other thing I want to say briefly is we will be doing a couple more of these, in the coming months, and we'll dive deeper into some of the other elements that we didn't get to today. So we hope you'll continue to come along and have the conversation with us.
One last thing about that too is if you think about topics that you'd like to hear, by all means, let us know, and we'd be delighted to, obviously if it makes sense for a wider audience. But that's also like we don't want to assume that we know what topics to deliver to you. So if there's something specific, please do let us know. And Anne Marie and Amy, who's been behind the scenes, you may have heard from her. Thanks to the both of them for an amazing job putting this on together. There's no way I could have done it without them. So appreciate you guys as well and
Thank you,
everybody's
Robert.
time. Yeah.
Yep. And Mary sent out all the
Mary,
emails.
yes,
It's a
yes.
team effort.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great day.
Okay. Thanks. Bye.